Hi everybody, my name is Jamie Pearce and I am Director of the Scottish Graduate School of Social Science, and I've been in this role for about 4 years now. And when I'm not doing that, I'm Professor of Health Geography at the University of Edinburgh. The aim of this short presentation is to introduce you to the SGSS, tell you a little bit about who we are and what we do, and provide a few updates of some of the issues that are going to be coming up over the next few months and years. Ordinarily, we like to run this event in person by travelling around the Scottish universities and managing to meet our colleagues from across the social sciences. But of course, this isn't an ordinary year and we won't be able to manage it this year. But hopefully in 2022, we'll be able to get back to meeting in person and coming around the country to meet everybody. If I can start by just saying a little bit about what the SGSS is. We're one of 14 ESRC funded, what are known as doctoral training partnerships, DTPs. And DTPs are funded by the Economic and Social Research Council to provide studentships and training. And here in Scotland, there is just a single DTP, so we're the national provider of studentships and training for all social science PhD students. And by working at the national level, that we think that's important because firstly, we can draw on the expertise of all Scottish universities in terms of sharing training provision and lots of other opportunities. It also enables us to work across all of the social sciences, cover the full remit of the Economic and Social Research Council, but it also enables us to deliver high quality and flexible training opportunities in advanced methods, employability, engagement, impact, interdisciplinary working, and many other areas as well. There's also, by working at the national level, it helps us to provide a whole range of opportunities for partnership, collaboration, engagement, and in particular by working with the Scottish Government in delivering our internship scheme is available to all of our social science students. We're funded by the ESRC and also the Scottish Funding Council, the SFC. The ESRC fund the studentship related costs, whereas the Scottish Funding Council fund other opportunities to open up the training to all of the non-ESRC funded students, and also to cover the costs of running a complex operation such as the SGSSS, which is funded alongside contributions to all of the partner universities. There are 16 universities as part of the SGSS, 16 universities across Scotland that have a social science presence. And of those 16, 12 are formally part of the ESRC DTP, and those are the institutions that are accredited to award ESRC funded studentships. So that is what we are in a very brief nutshell. We've managed to have a little bit of a think about what we have managed to achieve over the last few years, and I guess perhaps the most obvious one here is around the training that we provide, which we think is of really good quality. We provide around 700 hours of training each year across 4 broad areas, 9 streams, 9 types of training opportunity. We also have been very successful in developing collaborative and partnership opportunities in the internship scheme, what I've already mentioned, also in terms of our collaborative studentships. And as you can see there, we have a target from the SRC for 30% of our students to have a formal collaborative opportunity. So we have to work with the ESRC on achieving that. Enabling and facilitating strong research cohorts, again, is very much central to the sorts of things we do. We achieve this through what we call our hub and pathway model. So the various pathways that we have, training pathways that we have that our students are able to engage with, and also our cross-pathway hubs, which enables interdisciplinary working. We also have worked very hard on promoting interdisciplinarity, thinking particularly here about working across research council boundaries, as well as working in interdisciplinary ways across the social sciences. And also in terms of our internationalisation work, which has of course had to look somewhat different during the COVID period, but nonetheless supporting our students in engaging with the big global challenges that we currently face. We also have developed capacity as part of the DTP in key areas where there's seen a particular need for extra attention by the funding councils. So, for example, in advanced quantitative methods, in the use of existing ESRC data, or indeed in more generally in terms of secondary data use. Working across research councils, as I've already mentioned, facilitating those cross-council opportunities, and also in terms of business engagement. So how do social science students work with colleagues in the private sector? Lots of training and other collaborative opportunities have emerged during the DTP phase. We're also very proud of having a very inclusive model, ensuring that our training is available to all students, regardless of where they are in Scotland. So our internships, for example, are available to all social science students, regardless of their funding source. And then very finally here, we were really pleased last year, just before that, to have had a very strong midterm review outcome. The midterm review took place right at the end of 2019, and we got a formal announcement early in 2020 where we had a number of areas where we were seen to having examples of really good practice. So we are very pleased to have received such a positive bill of health from our ESRC colleagues. So just moving on and saying something very briefly about our governance arrangements. The model I've already described to you of working across 16 universities, 15 pathways, 3 hubs is complex. Having something that works across the whole of Scotland needs some very careful attention to governance. So we end up, of course, with some rather complex looking diagrams like this, but as I'll say a few words about it. You have in the large purple box there, this is the team that are responsible for the day-to-day running of the SGSS. Me as a director, our deputy directors and our associate directors with specific thematic responsibilities. We also have on the left-hand side here our Deans of Graduate Studies. So these are the Deans of Postgraduate Studies or equivalent in each of the universities who are responsible for the day-to-day operational delivery of the SGSS within individual institutions. So good contact for you within each of your universities. We also have a supervisory board who will oversee our activities and provide us with strategic direction and of course hold the purse strings as well. And these are BP level representation from each of our universities, giving us that strategic steer. An external partners board, so these are external partners who come from a range of industries and sectors, again giving us all sorts of advice on different aspects of our activities. Down here at the bottom, where a number of our colleagues have essential roles in the delivery of the SGS, our pathway conveners and our pathway representatives, who very much are at the coalface within our institutions, engaging with our student body, but also of course with the directorate team. And where we've added made some changes this year is on the left-hand side, where we've really rethought our model of student representation during 2021. And we've moved away from a model of trying to have student reps across all of the universities. It was very challenging for our students to represent a whole university and all its complexity, but actually asking our students to engage in specific thematic areas and providing input into particular aspects of our activities. And whilst it's early days with that model, we're really pleased with how that's begun, at least over the last few months. So that really just gives you a sort of sense as to what the model of governance is. I should also just add that communication, of course, is also extremely important and sometimes quite challenging when we're working across so many universities. But we do have a regular newsletter, and in particular, we have a Friday digest of the latest news, which is just a short, pithy summary of some key things that we think our students and supervisors and other social science colleagues will be interested in. You can sign yourself up for that by going onto our social platform. This is our online portal for studentships and all of our activities. So do have a look on the SGSS web pages, and we'd be very pleased if you signed up for our newsletter and other updates. Our pathway conveners and pathway reps, who I've already mentioned, of course, are absolutely essential for ensuring smooth communication within universities or down into school or department or subject area level. So there's lots of channels of communication, but certainly something we try and make sure works as best as we possibly can. This just says a little bit more about our pathways and our hubs. You have all of our accredited pathways on the right-hand side. You can see these are disciplinary and cross-disciplinary areas. This is where colleagues come together to think hard about the training kind of environment that students in these particular disciplines need beyond the more kind of generic cross-disciplinary areas. So each of these pathways has a pathway convener who's responsible for managing the studentship process within those pathways, but more particularly about really thinking through and strategizing around what students within sociology or economics or economic and social history might usefully benefit from. And you can see here that we've grouped our 15 pathways into 3 groups of 5, and these are what we call our hubs. So this is a way of bringing pathways together to think about the kind of cross-disciplinary training opportunities that may be valuable, but also coming together for sharing best practice around studentship competitions, and also having a key member of the directorate to work with. You can see that the 3 hubs here: Society and Welfare, the hub lead associate director is Rachel Shanks, who's just come into the role, so I'm very pleased to be welcoming Rachel. Economies, Mind and Technologies hub, led by Professor Melanie Sims, and also the People and Place hub that's led by Kirill Sharapov. So if you're a pathway convener, these are really useful people to make sure you get to know and work with. So that's our pathway and hub model. And then I'm not going to go through this, so this is probably quite a tricky one to see, but I just really wanted to make the point that our pathways on the left-hand side in the rows and our universities on the right, that almost all universities have a selection of pathways for which they have membership. You can see if you're at one end of the spectrum, Edinburgh University has membership or representation from all 15 pathways, whereas a number of other institutions, such as, for example, Napier University, is a member of just one of the pathways. This becomes important for the studentship competitions, because this is where each of the universities has accreditation. So, for example, Napier University is only able to apply through this one pathway, the Science, Technology, Innovation Studies and Information and Communication Studies pathway. So just to give you a sense of the structure, and all of this information is available on our webpage. You can zoom in and see it a little more clearly. Here are our pathway conveners. So these are sort of the critical people to get to know, particularly if you're a pathway rep, but also the people who are tasked with leading your discipline at a PhD level across Scotland. So thinking about what sort of training opportunities students in each of these pathways may benefit from, thinking about ways in which the universities can come together in useful ways in these social science areas. So here are our pathway conveners, and again, this is all on our web pages under the governance section for you to look up. The last thing I wanted to say, just by way of a few introductory comments, was a pointer to a really important development, something that's coming up very soon, which is recommissioning. It's hard to believe, but we're now into the final year of the original DTP accreditation that the SRC funded. We've got a delay or an extension by a year because of the COVID situation. So recommissioning should have been taking place in the summer of 2021, but it's now taking place in the summer of 2022 and very early 2023. And of course, this is going to be a key priority for the SGSS and indeed our colleagues across Scotland over the next 18 months as we build towards what I'm sure will be a really successful and compelling case for support for our recommissioned DTP here in Scotland. So we've got a bid that will be going into the ESRC, and we'll also be submitting a bid to the Scottish Funding Council to continue our work in terms of joining together the Scottish universities around social science postgraduate issues. You can see here the timetable that we were anticipating the ESRC have given us for recommissioning, which is going to start in anger later in 2021. By the end of this year, I hope we'll have, as directors, have a very clear sense of some of the key elements of the bid documentation that the ESRC are going to be releasing in hopefully the early summer, late spring, early summer of 2022. So there's an awful lot of developmental work that needs to happen between now and then, with the writing and refinement of the bid taking place in the latter half of 2022 before a submission right at the start of 2023, just after the New Year period. So there's a lot to do between now and then, but we're certainly making sure we're as prepared as possible, and certainly will be lots of opportunities for all of our colleagues across the social sciences in Scotland to get involved, to pitch in their ideas, to comment and critique some of the early ambitions that are developed by the bid writing team. So do look out for communication on that, and please do pitch in and get involved. We would really like to be a huge collective effort from the social science community across Scotland. Then in 2023, in the spring of 2023, we expect to have reviewers' comments and be able to respond to those, and then there's will be an interview process shortly after, with an outcome finally released in the summer of 2023, so that we can begin preparing the year's notice of the start of what I've called here DTP2, the first cohort of the next phase of the DTP to actually start in 2024, of course, with that 1 year preparation and recruitment process. So I just wanted to raise everyone's awareness of that, and that will be coming up and be very prominent in terms of planning and thinking over the coming months. So watch this space. That's all I wanted to say. I hope that's been useful for orienting you towards the SGSS. There's a number of other videos that we've been developing that you'll be able to have a look at around particular activities, including, for example, our training opportunities, our collaborative opportunities, the studentship competitions, the postdoctoral fellows, and many other aspects as well. So watch those alongside this video at your leisure. But thank you very much for listening, and I hope you've found it useful hearing a little bit more about the SGSSS.